This is a very quick and dirty video that I would like to do. And it's on this particular story. Well, it's largely surrounding this particular story that I heard on the radio this week. And it was where they were asking the oil minister for Saudi Arabia if prices would be going back up. And his response was, no one can set the price of oil. It's up to Allah. Which is really, it's really just his way of giving the finger to whoever asked that question. It's not like anybody's going to go, come on, Mr. Oil Minister, come on, enough with the silly, superstitious God stuff. Just come on now. Come on. What's the real story here? No, it's just you're stifling the conversation and nothing else is going to be said anymore. No one's going to challenge you any further. So it's funny though. All this is playing out exactly the way I thought it would. I'm not surprised at all by this story. They are not going to be cutting production. Or I'm sorry. Yes, that's what I meant to say. They're not going to be cutting production at all. And the reason for this is because they still have work to do. They still have to get the tight oil producers. They still have to strangle them completely. They haven't done it yet. They've got them, on the ropes, I think, is how I would describe it. They're taking a beating. This $54 a barrel oil is killing them. Has to be. But it takes time for this stuff to play out. They might just be waiting it out, playing this game of chicken. I don't think they can afford to play the game of chicken. I think it's crazy. The Saudi Arabians have the finest oil fields in the world. So yeah, I think it's kind of crazy for them to do that, but looks like that's what they're doing. But all this stuff is starting to play out. We're starting to see these stories come out. So in my opinion, this article echoes everything that I'm talking about here. So they're trying to get the U.S. export ban, the oil export ban, lifted. So they're saying that in this article, is that tight oil producers are hoping for an end to the U.S. oil export ban. They hired IHS to write the second report on this topic in less than a year. So without going into too much detail, well, first of all, there's really no export ban. I think, as far as I'm aware, this is my understanding, is it's not really a ban. It's just that it's exceedingly difficult to export oil in the United States. So it's not as easy as just lifting a ban. It's not a single act. Or if it is, it's just more complicated than lifting a ban, I think. I don't know that for sure, but we export a small amount of oil every year, typically. So we haven't completely banned it entirely. I think it's just this was the way I understood it before they even started talking, because I didn't realize that people were calling it a ban. And then now, just like in the last year or so, I've heard, maybe last year and a half, I've heard people refer to it as an oil export ban. It's not really a ban as far as I understand it, but you might as well call it a ban, because it's so hard to do. You can't really count on it. That's why we don't have a ban, or hardly any regulations at all, on refined fuels. That's why it's the whole that's why the whole Keystone XL pipeline thing is so important, because we're not talking about exporting the oil. We're talking about taking it to the refineries and then exporting it. So anyway, yeah, so this, I just think, echoes everything, because obviously they're going, please, let's just export it, and then this article sort of outlines why it's not really a solution to your problems, tight oil industry. You have problems regardless. So this is some of their problems. This article is excellent. It's very brief. It's a little technical, but not too technical. Anybody can understand it. It's actually outlining a lot of the stuff that I've talked about before. And so what it talks about is how all of these, as I've talked about before, you have with tight oil, you have an enormous amount of drilling going on in one location. It's not like you have a well and you have to just keep, what you have to do is just keep poking and poking and poking and poking. And so that's what this is sort of touching on. And what happens is, what is happening is that producing wells have been on the increase, but the production's going back. So you're sort of getting diminishing returns. I've talked about this before. And so all that's playing out. And so what winds up happening is, as stated here, production can only be maintained by drilling an ever increasing number of wells. So that graph sort of points out the Eagle Ford example. And this is problematic in this climate that we're currently in, because are we really going to be increasing? Are we going to have ever increasing number of wells? No. I don't even know if we would for very much longer anyway, but certainly not now. We're going to be backing off increasing those wells. I can guarantee that. There's a lot of other stories out there. NPR has some great stories on this subject. They're not always as intensively. The thing I don't like about NPR is they're not as intensively journalistic. They have kind of, they make these people stories, and that's fine. It tells a story, and it does the job of getting a certain level of information across in a certain way that's appealing to a lot of people. But what this story talks about is it's focusing on this guy, Gary Evans, CEO of the oil and gas company Magnum Hunter Resources. So they provide, fracking and trucking and so on and so forth. And so he's saying that, hey, we're not going to start this up again until we see a reduction in what we have to pay. So no drilling, no completion, no fracking, no nothing. Cut it off completely. We tell our vendors, when you're ready to do it at 40% below what you were charging me in December, we'll go back to work. So 40%, that's a huge decrease. So this spells trouble. All this just spells trouble. And all this spells the fact that all of this just says that, yes, the Saudi Arabians were doing this way the entire time. This is what has been going on. This is the outcome that they have hoped for. It all fits, I'm sorry for all of you conspiracy people out there, but this is what's happening. It's just economics. These guys want to get control of the market. Now, when they do get control of the market, and they, cut production, which is what was originally asked, when are you gonna cut production so these prices go back up? When they do that, and the prices go back up, as they inevitably will, then the tight oil investors aren't going to be there like they were before, because they're going to know that, well, these, the Saudi Arabians, OPEC just has such a control of the market. I could really, really lose a lot of money if I put all this money into this oil play that's so freaking expensive. And a lot of them will be, I lost my ass the last time. I don't want to do it again. And they'll be telling other people, I lost my ass. Don't do this. The money's just not going to be there. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get that production going again. And so that's what you have to keep in mind. So my message to my audience, the very few number of people that will actually watch this video, is enjoy it while you can. Now, That doesn't mean just go out and spend what you perceive as every bit of extra money that you have. Even though now's a good time for a vacation overseas because of the dollar. I'll just say that parenthetically. But yes, you don't want to just spend all of this, what you perceive as extra money. Put that towards your debts. Get out of debt. If you're not in debt, put it in savings. Don't just spend all this perceived extra money, because the prices are going to go back up eventually. And it won't be too long. It could, I think this is going to be, this is going to play out for a little while. So you can enjoy it for a little while, but I'm just saying, don't enjoy it too much. Make sure you're prepared. And if you take this time to prepare yourself, pay off your debts, get as much out of debt as you can, save as much as you can. And when this all hits again, you will be much, much better prepared. So that's my message to you, and I hope I myself can follow that advice. So, thank you so much for listening, and take care.